Welcome back, and I'm glad that you are still with me on the challenge. So today we are going to look at a particular yoga pose, and with this yoga pose I want you to think about inner strength. So what I mean by inner strength is often people think that yoga is just when you pull your mat out. And that is only a very small part of yoga. In fact, it's one of probably the smallest parts of yoga, is the actual movement that we do on the mat, and that is called asana. Okay? So today we're going to do one asana, one pose, or asana, depends on how you want to pronounce it. But I want you to think of inner strength. So maybe there's something that's happened over the previous years where you had to dig deep to get through it. But the reason I want you to think about this is that you can do it. You have that inner strength to get through anything. I've been through shitty stuff as well. Everyone goes through shitty stuff. There's nothing in the world, there's not one person in the world that's had this most wonderful life. And they've never had anything wrong, and they've never had any upsets or disappointment. There's not one person in the world that has lived a life like that. So, and I don't believe that the universe will give you stuff that you can't handle, as even awful as it is. I don't believe the universe will give you something that you can't cope with or you can't handle. Okay? So we're going to do the chair pose today. And we're going to get a little bit of a leg burn. So we are going to hold this pose for, a bit of time, not an hour, maybe 5 minutes or a minute, depends on your legs. But I want you to, when you're in this pose, really think of your anatomy. We'll go through the alignment. And when the legs start to burn, notice the thoughts that come through your mind, like, I can't do this, I need to come out of it. And see if you can start to use your breath to control the sensations that you might be feeling, or to control your thoughts. So just an example, like the legs will burn in chair pose if we hold it for a while. That's a really good way of getting rid of cortisol in the body. So if you are perimenopause, menopause, we tend to have a lot more cortisol in the body. This is a really good way of getting rid of cortisol because we're using all these big muscles. So that's a physical benefit. But you might be there going, I need to come out, I need to come out. It's like, right, take a breath in. Can you just release down your legs? Is there a way you can just stay in for one more breath? So sometimes just focus, trying to really be mindful of the inhale and the exhale can draw your attention from the pain in your legs to the breathing, and you'll be able to stay in it a little bit longer. I'm scaring the life out of you, but we'll only be here for maybe 10 breaths. Right, so chair pose. You can do this with your legs together, or you can do this with your legs apart. Personally, I prefer legs apart because that is the anatomical shape of the body. Okay, so, but you can do it that way. But I've also got very bony ankles, so they tend to rub. So knees are directly under the hips, and your feet want to be anchored down. Okay. So if you've never done a chair pose before, it's an idea to do it in front of a mirror so that you can see your spine alignment. But just to start with, have your hands on your hips and you're growing nice and tall. Breathe in, and as you exhale, just unlock your knees and imagine a chair. You're going to sit back on a chair, okay? I'm going to turn to the front now. Especially if your legs are like mine, like parallel, you really want to be mindful of that they're not coming together. They want to be in line with the middle toe. Your kneecaps are in line with the middle toe. Okay? I'm going to go through explaining this first, and then we'll go into it, because there's quite a lot to think about with the chair pose. So as you come back, okay, the other thing you want to notice is have your knees shot forward. So are your knees past your toes? You can see mine are. The knees want to come back. So I was like, can you see your toes? The next thing is the spine wants to be long. Okay, so often one of the hardest things, especially if you've never done yoga before, is to have the straight back. So sometimes people come into a chair and then they round. So lift your heart and think of the tailbone going back. And then have your hands on your hips and just wiggle your hips. So tuck the tailbone under. That's going to round your spine. Send your tailbone to the ceiling, and that's going to arch the spine. So you can see even my chest is gone. And you're going to have this little wiggle, and you get to the middle point where that part of the back's flat. But what I like about that is you'll really feel the abdominals kick in then. You have the choice of keeping your hands here. You can have your hands across the chest. You can have your hands here, which I quite like because it opens there. Or if you want to go full steam ahead, your arms will be up towards the ceiling, and then the neck stays in alignment with the spine. Okay? So, how do I say this right? I have a bugbear with teachers that just say, keep practicing, you'll get it right, blah, 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 blah. There's something called Aquinas foot. And an Aquinas foot, it can be a little bit of a muscular thing, but it can also be a bone structure thing. So for some people, the bones in their foot are like a horse's hoof. And when I mean by a horse's hoof, it's down like that. So for some people, trying to do a chair pose, it almost feels like if you go and put a block under the front part of your foot, that's what it feels like for them. So if you are trying to do a chair and you feel like you're going to fall back, or you just can't get deep into the position, put a little book or just something under your heels, a little cushion. I'm trying to think what you get in your house. Just put something, it might only be an inch, just put a little something under your heels so you will be slightly lifted. But what that does is it actually puts your foot into a straight line. Don't worry about the anatomy of it, but trust me. So if you are one of these people trying to come into your chair and you just feel like you're stuck and your knees keep wanting to go forward, so you'll be in that kind of position, something like that. Just pop a little block under the heels, and that will help you with your, you'll feel it'll be, oh God, that feels so much different. And even if you haven't got Aquinas foot and you find that maybe your ankles are a little stiff, try a little block under the heels, that will work. Right, are we ready? So, I have no idea how long we'll stay in here. We'll see how long my legs burn. I'll do this from the side. So, standing nice and tall, I just want you to set the position first. So, feet are hip-width apart all together, entirely up to you. Lengthen your spine up towards the ceiling, have a shoulder roll down the back, and engage your abdominals. So the first thing I want you to do is just set your intention. So I'm going to try and stay in my pose. I will embrace the sensation that I feel in my legs. I will be grateful for the sensation that I feel in my legs, that my legs are working, they're getting rid of all that cortisol in the body. And I'm going to try and focus on the breath and allow the breath to guide me through this particular challenge. So that's my intention. You can have whatever intention you want to do. So taking a breath in, send your hands wherever you want. Hips, chest, out, entirely up to you. And then we'll just start to sink in a little bit lower. So maybe to start with, if this is the first time you're doing a chair, providing the legs are bent and you're not locking those knees, you are going to feel this, okay? Sometimes I feel I might have a lot of stiffness in the upper back and it can be quite hard to hold the hands there. Have that little wiggle with your pelvis. That's when my abdominals kick in, so that's usually when the back is in a straight line. And then for those that want to work harder, can you sink a little lower? So providing those knees are not shooting forward. So again, if you've got Aquinas foot, you might find the knees just want to fall forward. So just pop a little something under the heels. Your neck is in a straight line. So because I've got my arms up, sometimes people want to lift their head. My gaze is to the front of the mat. The tummy is drawn in. Shoulders are relaxed down the back. Who's getting hot? This isn't a hot flush. This is hard work. And then we're just going to hold. Start to bring the awareness to your breathing. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. And we're just going to stay here. So if your legs are starting to burn, I'm just going to drop my arm so I can see the camera. If your legs are starting to burn, that's great. And I'm just thinking of the times in your life when you had a struggle. You got through the struggle, you're here today, and you can do the same on your mat. So when the legs start to burn, you're not doing any harm. It's lactic acid in the muscles. So maybe tomorrow you'll be a little bit stiff. But what I like to visualize with the burning is as I take my breath in, I'm bringing in fresh oxygen into the body. And then as I exhale, I almost imagine that this fresh oxygen has grabbed all that burn. And as I exhale, doesn't really, but the burn, that's what I try and visualize. So as soon as you start to fatigue, you might find your body wants to drop down. We want to keep that heart lifted, even if you need to straighten the legs a little bit. The most important thing is just to keep those knees bent. This is not a competition about how low you can go. Keep that tummy drawn in. Don't know what time we started. Shall we do 5 more breaths? So maybe this wasn't that burning or that challenging for you, but by all means, stay in this even longer. Really good way to warm up the legs as well. Good, and last breath. Good. And then inhale, release it as you come up. Whew. And just give your ankles a twirl. So what I noticed with myself is like that first part that started to burn, when I brought my attention to my mind and my breathing, it was still burning, but actually the burning wasn't that bad. It was like maintainable, is that the word I'm thinking of? So sometimes when you focus so much on the pain outside in life and on the mat, the pain is exacerbated, it's much bigger. So when we try and focus on something else, like the breath or things that we are grateful for in life, it will make the pain or the struggle smaller. So I hope you enjoyed that little challenge for today. Take care, guys. Like I said, if your legs burn tomorrow, this is why. Bye.